Hey everyone, I'm Clue, and boy have I been busy. So, I've been working on a lot of the infrastructure stuff again, so there's all these different fragments, and I remade the shard of power system from the previous iteration. But, of course, what we're worried about today is stats effects. So, last time we went over crafting, now we need to actually go over the effects. And the effects in themselves are pretty simple. All I really do is check whether or not an entity is tagged. So, for instance, if we were to add a tag to us, we'll do bleed 4. Right. Ta-da! We get our particle effect, and of course if we were in survival, we would actually take damage. Unless, of course, the stats effect ran out. Because they are on random timers to actually fade, but there you go. So we get our little redstone particle, which is the closest I can get to bleeding, and then some damage. That's pretty neat. But that's not really how they're applied, right? Because we have to make our wax bottles, and then we use that to actually inflict the status effects. So we've got our weapon coding tab, and here it is completely filled out. So we've got all the different statuses. So there are, how many is this? 7. There are 28 accessible status effects. So these are status effects that the player can inflict, or there are actually more that I've programmed in to the data pack. They're not accessible to the player, and they're for bosses or special events or stuff like that. I've also added the status effects to the seasonal system, so depending on the biome in the season, that mushroom's floating, you will be inflicted with different status effects. Anyway, I'll probably only craft a few of these, and we'll go over how exactly they work, since I don't really need to just go through and show them all off, right? Here's the first one. 2. 3, and finally the 4th one. And then any other effects that I think there are some nifty ones to show off, we'll just use the tag system. We got ourselves Swell, Submerge, Debilitate, and Rot. So that's actually a good mix, because these have some pretty different effects. And as you can see, Swell is in green, so this is probably the first thing we should touch on. There are 2 types. Those in green affect the user, and then those in red actually affect the entity you are hitting. So we'll grab out a Vindicator friend, or say enemy, and we will apply them with status effects. So if we stick Swell into our offhand, we should get, there you go, a particle effect in our main hand, right, indicating that we are now inflicting the status effect. Then, of course, if we summon a Vindicator, hit him a couple times, we should be able to see, there we go, a particle effect on us, indicating that Swell is now in effect, and I have not matched up those wax particles. So the hand particles should be the orange as well. Oh well, I think that means I mix them up between Swell and, what's the other one? Surge? I think they're the 2 that use the wax on and wax off. But yeah, so we hit the Vindicator and we ourselves get a tag. So if we go tag us list, oh, never mind, reapply it. Be there now, there we go, we get Swell, and Swell actually modifies our attribute, giving us increased, I want to say strength, and then Surge is attack speed, or attack damage is Swell, sorry, and then Boost is movement speed. Okay, so then on to the ones that actually inflict on the opponent. So, we have Submerge in our hand, there are Bubble popping, right, every now and then in our main hand, there we go. And if we inflict it on our Vindicator friend, there you go, he gets submerged. So every now and then he sprouts off water, and takes a little bit of drowning damage, right? Submerge, that's the best effect that I could sort of come up with for it. Then we have Debilitate, so this is a bit of a different effect. The other thing is, all of them are on different timers, so I've spread them out across, I think, 3 seconds, 8 seconds, and 12 seconds. And that way, there are, you know, fast-acting status effects, slow-acting status effects, and long-acting status effects, if that makes sense. And then the actual clear is, there's a chance at 30 seconds, there's another chance at a minute, and then there's a definite at 2 minutes. So the particle effect at most can last 2 minutes, but could last shorter than 30 seconds. Okay, so Debilitate, Vindicate Friend, hit him a couple times, and you should just get status effects. Right, Did I may have not put the particles on. Let's try us tag, add all, add Debilitate. I always forget the middle. So yeah, did I do that on this as well? No. So we have Debilitate. Oh, there you go, he got them. Just took a second to activate. We got Weakness, Mining Fatigue, and Slowness from Debilitate. Oh, and I don't want to be in this season, because they are, well, not annoying, but they cause effects that we're not trying to show off at the moment, right? So I'll come back here where I've set the biome to void. Okay, and then we have rots. Let's stick rot on. In our hand, we gain some crimson fungus particles. We hit our friend, if I could aim. Alright, we have weakness. Tag, at all, remove, debilitate, and you know what, I could also just grab out a sword, so we do enough damage now to inflict the status effect. Where are you? There we go. We should have it. Yes. So he sprouts in the fungus, takes some rot damage, and then he leaves this little area effect cloud that is continuing to grow as long as it inflicts its status effect onto someone. So for instance, it's just giving Wither and Poison 1. But it is pretty powerful, and the fact that it grows is good for AoE clearing. But if you were to suffer it, so for instance, we did tag at all add rot, right? So if we sprout it, and then fly up straight away, whenever the damage tick should occur, unless it just cleared. Nope. Ah, I almost missed it. Okay, so as long as it doesn't actually infect anyone further, it doesn't grow past the initial, I think it's meant to be 1, and then it gave us the first tick of it. Oh, there's another one. But if we were to stand in them, they would continue to grow and expand. Right, so the more enemies that are around, the better for rot. Okay, on to some of the more interesting ones. There are essentially 4 styles? Yeah, 4 styles that I've gone with. So again, green is something that affects the user, and it's just modifying attributes, and there are some negative ones that modify attributes. Then there are movement check ones, which are pretty cool. Then we have area effect clouds, and then we have stackables. So stackables require repeat application. So for instance, when I tag myself with bleed 4, right? 4 is the 4th one. So it starts at bleed 1 and then goes all the way to bleed 4, where it has its strongest effect. So those ones, it should say somewhere, reapplication increases the effects. There we go. So bang, poisons the afflicted. Reapplication increases the effect. So the more you continue to apply the status effect, the more it will build up and do more damage. Then for the actual movement ones, well, start off using us as the guinea pig again. So we'll go game mode, survival. Actually, that's bad because I'm still tagged. At all, remove rot. Add effect. Give at all instant health. 1. Done quick enough. Perfect. We need to move out of the rot. Okay. So, if we tag ourselves with Splinter, you can see the status effect is active, right? We're shooting off little thorns, if you will, but we're not taking any damage or losing anything. If we start moving, now we start taking damage. We stop, and we are fine. So Splinter, as long as the target is moving, be it a player or an entity, they're going to take damage. If they're standing still, then it does nothing. Counter to that one, if we were to tag ourselves with Entomb, for instance, / remove Splinter first, so tag, at all, add Entomb, this is the opposite. If you don't move, the status effects are going to continue to grow, so as long as we're not moving, we're building slowness. If we start moving again, we will lose the slowness effect, except for the initial, because it does apply slowness 1, and we're fine. We stop again, and make sure the tag is still active. Right, and we'll continue to grow and grow and grow every few seconds, till it eventually gets to 10, stops, and entombs us. Ooh, I can see. First person, there we go. Alright, I am in survival. There we go. So for instance, if we were to tag an enemy, they make sure not to move, perfect. Entomb. I could spell. Right, so they're going to get slower and slower and slower, till the point where they can't actually move, and then eventually, they move. Way to ruin it. Hopefully that's enough. No, you're moving again. Don't make me block you off. I just want to see it working naturally. I guess it's more of, say, a PvP-orientated one. Or if you inflict slow by something else, or restrict movement, you know, maybe cobweb them. Yeah, let's try that. We'll cobweb them. And then inflict it. Right, because I'll stop them moving. Don't you move. Grow, grow, grow. Well, eventually, it either runs out or he finally gets into it. There we go. So you're going to be taking some suffocation damage because he's inside the block, which is fine too, right? Because you are technically entombing them. So I was hoping they'd get pushed into the middle, but the suffocation's not bad. A player would be smarter, obviously. Okay, so that was that. Entomb was the movement. We should probably show off one of the positives that are a little bit better. Slash also noticeable. So for instance, if we tag ourselves with boost, there we go. We get a boost of movement speed, but it's not speed, it's the attribute stat. That way it works with the potion effects or any other modifiers, right? And all stacked together. And then it will eventually wear off once the tag is removed. So tag, add all, remove, boost. And we'll lose our speed. FOV goes back to normal, attribute gone. Okay, anything else to sort of touch on? No, not really. I guess Purify is interesting. All it does is strip away the particles, but I think that's enough to go over for the actual effects. How does it actually work though? So I'm running a few checks every time we go to apply a stat effect. So again, scoreboard systems, and we'll get more in depth with this once we go over the actual data pack assembly. But we have a few different ones. So we have copper flask use, and then we should also have a dot apply somewhere. Status apply, there we go. So every time we attack, status apply is just ticking up to 1, and then clearing, and then it performs a luck check. So we've gone over the luck check before. If our luck is greater than or equal to the RNG number that's generated, then we apply a status effect. So if you have 100 luck, you have a luck check stat of 1,000 and are guaranteed to inflict the status effect. But if you have less than that, it starts at 10%, so with no luck, so just base Minecraft, you have a 10% chance of inflicting status effects, increased by every point of luck. Then the last scoreboard that we utilize for this, last mechanic, say, is this copper flask use. If we do that, you can see now it says 46, so this is actually pretty perfect, because it's close. So if we hit you 8, and then 1 if you weren't taking constant damage, you once more, the status effect flask deteriorates. So you get 50 uses of any given flask, and then it deteriorates. Now, they are universal, meaning if you swap flasks, it will just destroy the one currently in your offhand position. The only other good thing, though, is it does take from your inventory first. So, for instance, if we were to set the score manually, add all copper flask use, we'll go to 48. Right, so 1 hit away. We'll F5 so we can see the effect. So a little glass break sound and a little glass particle, and it took from our inventory for our offhand. So as long as you have a chunk of them in your inventory, you're fine. You can continue to use them for combat purposes without worrying about having to constantly re-equip them. And then, like I said, it only affects the one you're currently using, meaning if you were to swap to a weaker one, although crafting-wise they're all just as difficult, you could make sure that the tick runs off those. Although, internally, you have no idea how many uses, right? And the uses only tick up if the status effect is applied. So if you hit someone with no luck, for instance, if we were to effect clear ourselves, right? So we have no luck now. So we only have a 10% chance to apply. So if we hit him, well, that time it did inflict. We hit him, 14, 16. Oh, no, never mind. It's going up every time. Oh, and we're in the Gale biome. Back we go to safety. Okay, so yeah. So every time you hit an opponent, actually regardless of whether or not it applies status effect, so I did change that, it's going to get used up. So after 50 uses or 25 hits, it clears. There is a better variant of the copper wax. In fact, we might as well just show this off. There's not much to the extra or the secondary system. Next tier, I guess. But using these world fragments, which actually we've been collecting. World fragment harvest. I take your copy, good. We chuck one in and chuck the copper flask. Boom, they combine to make a enriched copper waxing flask. And this now only upticks the counter by 1 every time, rather than 2. Meaning that you've doubled your uses. It also applies to more enemies whenever the status is actually inflicted. It means in terms of the positives, you could, buff a whole group of people. In terms of the negatives, you could inflict the status effect onto a whole crowd, onto a whole group of enemies rather than just the enemy directly in front of you. We're still getting bombarded by the wind. Right, because we have one of the tags too. Yeah, we have Gale. I'm entering the Gale biome. Anyway, we'll leave it there. It's actually longer than I normally like. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and then in the next one we'll go over the technical side of how I assemble the effects and how I map out status effects this episode, because they're super easy to use. Again, all I'm doing is checking for a tag, and usually running 2 commands. One for a particle effect, and then one for the actual effect of the status effect. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.